Hello, 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 everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is another one of our Viper Strike 95 streams. This is Viper Strike 95. I hope you're all doing well. And happy Friday, everyone. The weekend's finally getting to start here. So today we're here in Butte in the United Kingdom. We're actually in Scotland today. We're here at Feshy Bridge Airfield in Scotland. And today we're here to do our next of our Gameday fight series, and it's the biggest match in all of Scotland, and it is also one of the most bitter and hated rivalries in all of sports. The Old Firm between Rangers and Celtic. A massive game that has not only influenced Scottish football, but this matchup has bled into both the political, social, and religious divisions and sectarianism in the entire region of Scotland. So as a result, this rivalry is extremely bitter and hated. And these two clubs, by the way, Celtic and Rangers, are both two of the most trophy clubs in the world. So these are two very big clubs with a rich history, and they both also play. It just so happens these two clubs also play in the same city, in Glasgow. So basically, it's like you take a local derby and you spice it up to 11. So that's basically what Old Firm is. So before we get started, I do want to say hello in the chat. Super Typhon is lurking. Good to see you, my dude. I hope all your lurkers are doing well. So here's our nav map for this afternoon's flight. So we'll start here at Feshy Bridge Airfield. From there, we'll head east through Cairngorms National Park. We'll head into the city of Aberdeen. We'll check out Pittodrie Stadium, the home of Aberdeen FC. We're going to visit some of the well-known Scottish clubs. We'll be checking out some of the famous Scottish football clubs. Then from there, we'll make our first of two stops in Dundee. We'll visit Dundee United and Dundee FC, literally separated by an entire street, which is the closest rivalry in the United Kingdom, actually, is this one right here. And we'll make our way through downtown Dundee and stop at Dundee Airfield. Then from there, we'll head southeast. We'll visit the town of St. Andrews. We're going to visit the famous golf course here in St. Andrews. Then we'll head over to Edinburgh, which is actually the political capital of Scotland, in Edinburgh. We'll check out the two homes, Easter Road Stadium, the home of Hibernian, and we have then we go to the famous ground of Murrayfield, the home of Scottish rugby, and Tynecastle Park, the home of Hearts, the current leaders of the Scottish League. But yeah, we'll fly over downtown Edinburgh, take some pictures. Then from there, we'll head east. We'll fly into Falkirk. We'll go to Falkirk. Then we're going to go into Stirling, visit the famous Stirling Castle, and finally make our way down to Glasgow. And from there, we'll make our way over to Celtic Park, the home of Celtic. Then we'll go across the street. We'll go into Hampden, the famous home of Scottish football. And finally, of course, then downtown Glasgow. We'll fly over there for a bit. And then we'll make our way over to Ibrox Stadium, the home of Rangers, and we'll make our final stop at Glasgow Airport. So that's going to be our flight for today. Should be an action-packed flight. We got tons of really cool areas we'll be flying to today. So I'm very excited for this, obviously. And our airplane today is the Just Flight Warrior, Piper Warrior, and I think this would be a great aircraft for this flight. Should go in nice and slow, which would be pretty good for a thing like this. So we're going to go ahead and get everything set up and turned on. Battery on, off. Avionics on. There you go. So that is how you start the Piper Warrior, of course. But yeah, looking forward to this one. This is a very big match. Prior to this game, by the way, for Rangers and Celtic. Here's the crazy part. Usually every year, it's either Rangers or Celtic in the top two of the Scottish League. But this year is extremely different, actually. It's Hearts who are leading the standings in the Scottish League with 60 points. Rangers is only 4 points behind them, and Celtic are 4 points away from Hearts, and Celtic is 6 points away. So this matchup is a big deal because if they get a win here this week, Hearts, if they manage to get a win, they would push themselves 3 points closer to Hearts to be 1 point away, assuming if Hearts doesn't win against Aberdeen this weekend, of course. So very big deal, of course. In Scotland, we haven't had a new winner that's outside of the old form. We haven't had one that are won by the old firm clubs. The last team to win it was Aberdeen, winning the title in 1984-85 season under Alex Ferguson. And that was before he went to Manchester United and became the dominant manager at Manchester United. So pretty big stuff. So our flight plan is 87 degrees. I mean, we got beautiful scenery here in this part of Scotland, of course. Scotland's a absolutely stunning region. And I'm going to set the heading to E7 degrees. Also going to have to set trim. I mean, this should be enough, huh? So here we go, guys. Well, they said for us to climb to 5,000 feet, so. Of course, this has no landing gear, so we'll take off. And we'll slowly we'll just circle around the airfield. So we'll just do this. And we're just going to slowly pick up elevation. Remember, this isn't a very fast aircraft, so we're going to just going to take things nice and slow with this Piper War. But this scenery out here is absolutely breathtaking this morning. What a gorgeous scenery this morning in the Scottish Highlands. And I did get to visit the Scottish Highlands in real life last year and last May. Last May and June, absolutely beautiful. Scotland this time of year was absolutely breathtaking. So we're going to go ahead and turn on the autopilot, and we'll put on the heading mode. So we're finally going to climb up to 5,000. Yeah, we're getting to see some Scottish Highlands. So, the beautiful Highlands, though. Look at the scenery out here this morning. Of course, I'm just trying to manage the elevation with this, make sure the elevation's going to the right place. Beautiful scenery. Wow, look at the scenery in this part of Scotland. Holy heck, that is absolutely gorgeous. I got to check my airspeed. Make sure 77 knots. Don't want to get too slow. I'm going to just lower the elevate. I'm going to lower the pitch. We pick up speed. But yeah, look at this scenery though. This is Ben McDooley, I believe, at peak all the way up there. Absolute gorgeous scenery this morning. Getting ready for this year's Old Firm game, of course. I'm going to go ahead and pull my slideshow here today. We're going to talk about the iconic Old Firm. The Old Firm, the legendary matchup in Scotland between the football clubs of Celtic and Rangers. And they have both been based in Glasgow. And these are the two most popular and successful clubs in all of Scotland. Very big, important clubs, and this is a very old rivalry. Dating back to 1888 was the first time these two clubs have met. In the 449 meetings between Rangers and Celtic, Rangers actually has the most wins in the series with 172, but this is an insanely evenly matched rivalry because the total record is 172 wins for Rangers, 171 wins for Celtic, and 106 draws. So this is absolutely a very evenly matched rivalry between these two Scottish giants, of course. One interesting thing about this rivalry, of course, this rivalry has been so deeply embedded in the country. It's contributed to the political, social, religious divisions and the sectarianism in Scotland. And as a result, these matchups have a very enduring appeal to many fans across the world, not just in Scotland. These two clubs are also and as of course, these are two of the most successful clubs. In fact, Rangers and Celtic are two of the most successful clubs in Scotland. Combined, they've won about 110 Scottish Championship trophies in their collection. Won over 110 Scottish Championships, 76 Scottish Cups, and 50 Scottish League Cups. Of course, the last time a Old Firm rivalry won was, of course, Aberdeen. Now, one interesting thing about Old Firm is how did this rivalry even come about in the first place? Why is it even called the Old Firm in the first place? Well, the reason this rivalry was called the Old Firm was because the origin of the term is not clear. However, it might have derived from the club's initial matchup when the commentators referred to the team like two old firm friends, or from a satirical cartoon that was published in 1904, depicting an elderly man with a sandwich board reading, "Patronize the Old Firm, Rangers Celtic Limited." representing the commercial benefits of their meetings. At the turn of the 21st century, the two clubs jointly registered the Old Firm as part of a trademark. So yes, Old Firm is technically trademarked into this rivalry, of course. So this is how it was called Old Firm in the first place. And that's why the rivalry is called Old Firm in the first place. One very interesting thing about this rivalry, of course, is something very unique for this rivalry compared to many of the other rivalries we have covered in this series. In the rivalry and sectarianism, you see, the rivalry between Rangers and Celtic is far more than just one for sports. It has to also do with Northern Scotland as Scotland, in fact. It's not just Scotland itself, but also Northern Ireland. And it can be seen from many of the flags, cultural symbols, and emblems of both clubs. In fact, because of this, it was infused with a series of complex disputes centered on religion, Northern Ireland-related politics, national identity, and social ideology. You see, these two clubs couldn't be any more different. So basically, if you talk about the political stuff to separate these two clubs, Celtic is mainly Catholic because Celtic was founded in 1887 for the Irish Catholic population in Glasgow, and that's when it was founded. As a result, because of all this and the Irish identity, Irish flags are actually waved a lot in Celtic games as a result, because they are very much centered on Irish republicanism, and they're very much more to socialist politics. Rangers, on the other hand, was founded as a club for Protestant Scots, and their politics are pretty much loyalist, and they view themselves as conservative British identity. Now, of course, there are fans on both sides of the aisle. Of course, there might be some Protestant fans of Celtic who might believe in Republican causes, or we might have a Catholic supporter of Rangers. Of course, that's not very common, but who knows? But that's what the club has historically been. Good to see you, Filthy. I hope you're doing well. Now, of course, the majority of Rangers and Celtic supporters do not get involved in sectarianism, but there have been serious incidents in the past where they did occur. And let's just say it is not pretty. The Old Firm Derby has had and revealed many assaults on Derby days, and there have been some deaths in the past directly related to the aftermath of these matches. And there have been multiple things of disorder, of course. Now, of course, for all the political stuff, all that sort of stuff, of course, as a result. And there has been disorders within the stadium in the past. For example, there was hundreds of opposing fans fought an on-pitch battle after Celtic's victory in the Scottish Cup final at Hampton against Rangers, and it resulted in around 400 police outside Hampton dealing with the disorder issues. And as a result, that's why in Scotland, you can't sell alcohol in football grounds in Scotland because of this incident. Then, of course, there was also a serious issue in 1994, which Rangers chairman David Murray announced that Celtic fans have been banned from the Ibrox Stadium due to repeated instances of vandalism, which the Celtic refused to take responsibility for. And there was also an infamous moment in 1999 with a league title, and as a result, missiles have been thrown on the pitch of that game, and as a result, all 4 matches have been normally played in the early afternoon, and the possibility of a title decider has been deliberately been avoided to prevent incidents like this. Yes, this derby is extremely bitter. I tell you, there are not many ones around the world as bitter as this one. Over 100 and of course, over the 100 matches between the rivals, there have been player staff involved in many incidents besides just the bad tackles or red cards. In 1987, four players were charged with the police with breach of peace for their conduct during a match in Ibrox. They appeared in court. There was an incident back in 2000 After being sent off a match, Rangers midfielder Barry Ferguson was involved in a violent brawl with Celtic fans at the hotel there in the same evening. And of course, one infamous moment was in 2011 when an angry exchange took place at Celtic Park between Celtic manager Neil Lennon and Rangers assistant coach Ali McCoist, requiring police officers to separate them at the end of the match when 3 players were dismissed. And as a result, it was a pretty well-known incident for Scottish football, of course. And finally, for the fans, of course, there have been times that visiting fans can't even visit the ground because of all the grudges, of course. Rangers cut off their allocation for Celtic fans from around 7,000 to 800. Celtic would end their tradition as well, and they had some negotiations to bring fans back in the game, and ultimately, as of 2024-2025, around 2,500 visiting fans have occurred since then. But yes, there has been a lot of rivalry between these two clubs and their histories, of course. So, but basically, the gist of this, of course, is the fact that Rangers and Celtic are very bitter rivals, and it doesn't help that the fans can be that way too, especially considering how bitter their fans can be on both sides. Not just Rangers and Celtic, it's their fans. And it's because that division has been so ingrained in them. And it makes sense considering that they're the 2 big clubs in Scotland, and they both are in the same city. So, obviously, when you have all that cultural differences, it's bound to happen, of course. But one really well-known thing about this now, of course, one very big thing about this derby, of course, that makes it quite different, of course, is what the events happened in 2012. And one of the more interesting things that have happened with the old firm since 2012, of course, was with Rangers, funnily enough. You see, Rangers had a financial collapse that occurred in the mid-2000s, and with financial difficulties in 2012, they completely collapsed. Their assets were bought by a brand new company, which allowed them to reapply for the Scottish League division in the lowest division. And thus, as for the first time in 120 years of Scottish football, there were no fixtures between Rangers and Celtic. This also has changed the status of this rivalry. Since Rangers were liquidated in 2012, the rivalry also expired, and thus any new matches played between Celtic and the new Rangers. And there have been adherents of this view that refer to Rangers as Sevco, which was the original name of the post-2012 holding company, and is mainly viewed by the Celtic supporters, of course. It did take Rangers quite a few years to climb back up the rankings, of course, to climb back up the Scottish football system. It took them 4 years to climb up from the lower divisions to retake their place in the Scottish Premiership for the 2016-2017 season. Of course, Celtic won their treble in 2018-2019, although Rangers did have victories over them in the league. But one very big thing that happened, of course, was in the 2021 season where Rangers won their 55th title in their first since 2011, breaking Celtics' record 10 straight championship. So the rivalry has changed considerably since Rangers and Celtic, since Rangers folding, of course, in 2012 with their liquidation, but Rangers have slowly climbed their way back to the very top of Scottish football. And finally, of course, one more thing to talk about Old Firm, and just the basics for this has been their complete dominance of the Scottish League. You see, these two clubs aren't just dominant in a traditional sense. They are by far and away the most dominant club in Scottish football. No kidding. Since its formation in 1890, they've been the only participants in every edition of the Scottish League since then. And the intensity of rivalry is also fueled by their duopoly in Scottish football, with most means between them pivotal in deciding the destiny of a championship or cup, and anything but a title win season is a major disappointment, because mainly it would be the enemy that has won the trophy. But yeah, statistics shows that Rangers and Celtic have actually been the most successful clubs in Scottish football. In fact, since its formation in 1890. And the pair have basically been a part of every edition until 2012 and then returned in 2016. The reason why Rangers and Celtics have been so dominant is that other clubs are unable to match or even challenge over the season due to disparities in fan base, financial power, a gap which has widened since the 90s thanks to TV money, thanks to prize money on TV deals, which a lot of the competition went back to the old firm and they reinvest and pull even further ahead. And I'm not kidding, it's still there to this day, of course. To put this perspective and to see how much more impressive that the Rangers and Celtic have been, in the Scottish Championships, Rangers and Celtic have both won 55 championships each, which at first glance think is not a big deal, but that's 110 championships total. The other 19 have won by other clubs. That's it. They've won the vast majority of the championships in Scotland. So there's the table on there, the pie chart. Rangers in blue, Celtic in green, and other clubs are in gray. If you look at the total achievements, yeah, basically Rangers and Celtic compile for nearly 85% of all trophies in Scottish football. That's pretty insane. Two clubs have completely dominated. As for the other champions, well, I'll give you the list of the other champions. The next two are tied for, they were basically tied for third, and that's Aberdeen, Hearts, and Hibs, all with 4 each. Then you have Dumbarton with 2, with their last title being 1891. Motherwell, Kilmarnock, Dundee United, and Third Lanark all have a title each. That's it. A total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 clubs total have ever won the Scottish League. That's pretty crazy. And over 85% of them are the old firm. That tells you a story. And the last time a non-old firm club had won the Scottish title was Aberdeen. And funnily enough, they were led by Sir Alex Ferguson. That's right, the same Alex Ferguson that completely dominated the Premier League with Manchester United was Aberdeen's manager. Which is pretty crazy. So that concludes my part of the Old Firm rivalry. I'm going to go ahead and descend. And we're going to descend to around, I think, 2,000 feet. So we're going to go ahead and descend. I'm going to lower my power a bit, so we can start descending down to Aberdeen, of course. So that covers a bit of the overview for the Old Firm. But this week's matchup is a very big one this week. And especially if you're a fan of Rangers and Celtic, you guys are trying to catch Hearts, which are having an unbelievable season in Scotland. I mean, Hearts, it's not easy for Hearts. They're 60 points. They're absolutely having an unbelievable season. And who knows, if they keep winning and Hearts keeps winning, they could become the first club since Aberdeen to finally win that title. Which would be amazing for Scottish football. A new champion has been so sorely needed. So we'll descend slowly through all this too. So before we get started, for this weekend, of course, we also have another stream this weekend, of course. On Sunday, of course, we have one more stream on Sunday. We'll be visiting Carlsbad Caverns National Park in New Mexico. So we'll start from Lubbock and make our way to Carlsbad Airport. But we'll be checking out the famous caverns in New Mexico. That'll be for our National Park series. I'll be looking forward to covering it on our series. So I'm being very much looking forward to that as well. So I'm looking forward to this week for Old Firm. So we'll get forward down to Aberdeen. So I have visited Scotland more than a few times in the past. Of course, I visited quite a few cities here. I did visit the Glasgow area. I was actually in Greenock. I was actually docked in Greenock, of course. Then we also visited Kirkwall in the Orkney Islands. We visited Kirkwall, which is a really neat little town. I really like Kirkwall. Was such a neat little town, such a cool little place. Kirkwall was the St. Max Cathedral. Kirkwall was a neat city, neat little town community. The Inverness Invergordon region was really cool. In Inverness were absolutely gorgeous, and of course Edinburgh was absolutely awesome. A lot of walking, yes, but man, Edinburgh was such an exciting historic city. Edinburgh, really great. I hope to visit Scotland again. My mom loved it too. So we'll head down through here. In terms of other sport events this week, of course, to recap, the Champions League happened. Basically the Champions League happened this weekend. So we now have the round 16 in the Champions League draw. But the big surprise, Inter Milan, last year's finalist of the Champions League, just lost to Bodo Glimt. Yes, the Norwegian side. In one of the more surprising wins in the Champions League. So, very huge surprise, of course. And of course, the Champions League draw happened. So the round 16 has finally happened. And this was a very big one, of course, for the round 16 draw. So the matches for the round 16 Champions League, we have PSG versus Chelsea. A rematch of the Club World Cup final, of course, between these two clubs. Then we have Real Madrid, Manchester City again. Yes, it's those two clubs again. Then we have Newcastle and Barcelona. Should be a good one, though. Then this one is a very interesting matchup. Bodo Glimt versus Sporting Club Portugal. A big matchup in the Champions League between the two of the best clubs from outside of the top 8. This one should be good because the winner of this is going to the top round of 8. And I mean, how crazy if we can get a Norwegian side into the top 8 of the Champions League. Then of course Galatasaray versus Liverpool. This should be interesting, of course. Atalanta versus Bayern. And then Atletico Madrid versus Tottenham Hotspur. And finally, Bayer Leverkusen versus Arsenal. Ooh, this is going to be very big, of course. As for who I think is going to play each other in the quarterfinals, if I were to give my prediction, of course, I would say PSG knock out Chelsea. And here's a spicy take. Galatasaray upsets Liverpool. Liverpool gets knocked out by the Turkish side, the Turkish Giants. Real Madrid and Man City is going to be a very tough matchup. But in the end, I think Real Madrid have enough to pull out, and I think Real Madrid knock out Manchester City. Atalanta, Bayern Munich. I feel bad for the fans in Bergamo, Italy, but Atalanta's not getting past Bayern Munich. Yeah, they did beat Borussia Dortmund, but Bayern Munich's a different beast of a club. Then I think Barcelona knocks out Newcastle. Atletico Madrid take out Tottenham. I know Spurs are not having a great season domestically, but I think Atletico has more enough in the tank to knock out Tottenham. Bodo versus Sporting is going to be the most interesting one because it could go either way, but I'm going to give it to the Portuguese side, Sporting, knocking out Bodo and advancing to the round of 8 into the quarterfinals. And lastly, Arsenal smacking Leverkusen. So that's going to be the Champions League predictions for my opinion, of course. So, but yeah, very big though for the Champions League. Like I said, this Champions League is going to be a very big deal, of course. So we're about to head into the Scottish city of Aberdeen. So Aberdeen, of course, this well-known Scottish city is known as Scotland's Granite City. It's actually Scotland's third most populous city, in fact, and the 39th most populous built-up area in the United Kingdom. Aberdeen received major royal burstaffs under the King David I of Scotland, and transformed the city with main industries like fishing, papermaking, shipbuilding, and textiles. However, nowadays it's taken over by oil industry, and as a result, it's such a big deal that its heliport is actually the world's busiest heliport. Yes, it's actually here in Aberdeen, Scotland. You can also find, of course, the University of Aberdeen that was dated back to 1495, the 5th oldest university in the English-speaking world, and it was a major city for granite. So it's a big granite city, of course. But Aberdeen's definitely a very interesting city with a lot of history, of course. So some of the landmarks here in the city include a lot of the granite areas are built with granite. And a lot of their buildings were granite, and sometimes they might even sparkle like silver due to the mica content that's in the granite. So occasionally you might see it sparkle, of course. So pretty cool stuff. That's just a little bit to know about Aberdeen, of course. Hey, Ebonius Player, good to see you. I hope you're doing well, my dude. Check out Ebonius Player 200's channel here on Twitch. A really good friend. I hope you're doing well, my dude. We're covering the famous Scottish football rivalry, the Old Firm. We just talked a bit about the background of this historic matchup between Rangers and Celtic. But let me tell you something about the Old Firm, and I've seen plenty of stuff about this rivalry. Old Firm, it makes your average rivalry look dull in comparison. Old Firm is more than just a rivalry or a derby. It's something far greater. It's political, social, religious, and more. It's just, what do you want me to say? It's extremely unique among the rivalries. Let me show you about a video about Rangers stuff. Here we go. Let me post a video for the Twitch. I know you're doing a pretty big thing on tomorrow, of course, Avanias, with you, Rapunza, and Bougie Sheep are going to do some pretty epic flying tomorrow, so I'll be checking on in with you, of course. So this is Aberdeen, of course, a pretty nice city up here. I posted a video for you guys. If you guys want to learn more about the Old Firm, I have the video up here to show you the roots of this rivalry a bit more in depth than I can do. But yeah, it's pretty crazy to see how much this derby has really changed anything. So after we get to Aberdeen, we'll turn right and we'll talk about the first of the two clubs representing this derby, Celtic. We'll talk about them. as we fly through Aberdeen, of course. So you guys are more than welcome to join on in. We fly the Southeast Asian server, and here's our route for today. So we'll be doing plenty of flying here, of course. So this is Aberdeen. Really excited to visit this place, of course. I need to do some more GA flying, of course, here in Scotland. So, in terms of other games this week for some of the clubs I follow, of course, for this weekend, in terms of our clubs, Espanyol are going to be playing on Sunday against Elche, and tomorrow is Everton and Newcastle. So at St. James's Park. Should be a fun one, of course. I mean, last year Everton were able to get the win at St. James, so maybe the Toffees can do it one more time. Another win at the St. James Park. Of course, Louisville City is coming up very shortly next week. Is going to be next Friday. Is Louisville City versus Lexington. Unfortunately, I'm not doing that game because there is a far more important game coming up in the next Gameday flight. And our next Gameday flight will actually be on March 6th. And our next rivalry is going to be March 6th, and our new game is going to be the Battle in Milan, of course. AC and Inter are going to be next week's Gameday match in Italy, which should be a really epic one. And if you guys don't know about AC and Inter, they, similar to Glasgow and Rangers, they are two of the most dominant clubs of Italian football, and both these clubs have such rich history. Inter Milan, of course, the blue and black, the black and blue versus the red and black of AC. In the Derby della Madonna. Should be a really special one, of course. So this here is the city of Aberdeen, of course. And we're very close to flying over the stadium. So this ground right here is the home of Aberdeen FC. They are the previous Scottish champions that were not part of the old firm. So, pretty big stuff. So there it is. So we're going to go ahead and turn right. And we'll start talking about Celtic. So 190. There we go. So let's go ahead and talk about Celtic for a bit as we head our way down to Dundee. So Celtic Football Club, Celtic FC, of course, being one of the most famous clubs in all of Europe, not just in Scotland, but this is one of Europe's most historic clubs, dating back to 1887, with the main purpose of alleviating population within the Irish-Scots population that lived here in Glasgow, in the east end of the city. And they played their first match in 1888 against Rangers in a friendly match, which Celtic won 5-2. This legendary club established himself as one of Scotland's biggest clubs, winning 6 straight league titles during the first decade of the 20th century. However, if you ask Celtic supporters, their most successful era was, of course, the 60s and 70s, led by manager Jock Stein. They won 9 straight league titles, but most importantly, they won the 1967 European Cup in Lisbon. That's right. They won a Champions League trophy. A lot of younger folks outside of Scotland don't know that Celtic actually have won a Champions League before. In fact, not only did they win the Champions League, they are the first British club to ever win one. That's right. They won a Champions League trophy before clubs like Manchester United and Liverpool have actually won it. Which is actually insane. And the team that won it was known as the Lisbon Lions, and are considered to be the greatest team in club history. Interestingly, Celtic are one of only 7 clubs to have won over 100 trophies, which is actually insane. One of only 7 to have won 100 trophies, and with 120 major honors as of 2025, the most of any European club and second in the world. That's right, they're above their city rival Rangers, which is actually 3rd in the world. But the club with the most trophies actually is EGZL-EGPN, has won the most trophies, of course. And they play in Egypt. So Celtic is the most successful European club. The other top 5 other most successful European clubs are Rangers, their rival, Linfield, who play in Northern Ireland, by the way. Then you have Real Madrid and FC Barcelona getting the top 5. That's pretty impressive to think about. But yes, Celtic are an absolutely massive club, which is just absolutely insane. Of course, if you look at their uniforms, they've been playing their famous green and white throughout their history, and of course, they've used these jersey designs since 1903. And speaking about the crest and colors of Celtic, it's pretty obvious that their club colors are, of course, the famous green and white, and their home strip that runs horizontally has been around since 1903, but it wasn't always like this. Their original kit was actually white top with black shorts and black and green hoop socks. Of course, the club then changed its color to green and white vertical stripes, and this was what they wore for the next 14 years, actually. However, something big happened in 1903, when Celtic adopted their famous green and white hooped tops, and it was worn in 1903 against Patrick Thistle for the first time ever, and they wore these until the 1930s with black socks, and then they switched them out for the green socks before white socks came in 1965, and they've worn that color pretty much ever since. So Celtic has been very well known for their iconic designs. Of course, the green and white makes sense. These colors represented a lot of the Irish from Ireland, of course. Now, of course, the club badge was started in the 1930s, but the one you see nowadays, of course, was in 1977 where they now wore it. And that's the crest you see on their shirts. And that was the first crest they put onto their jerseys in 1977. So pretty cool stuff. Celtic have one of the more iconic looks in world football. In terms of their stadium, of course, they play in Scotland's largest football ground, and that is Celtic Park. It has a capacity of 60,832 people, making it Scotland's largest football stadium and the 8th largest football stadium in the United Kingdom. And this stadium has been around for Celtic ever since 1892. And it developed into an oval-shaped stadium with vast terracing sections, of course. This ground is absolutely huge. Record attendance at Celtic Park was at an absolutely insane 83,500 in an Old Firm Derby in 1938. Of course, they changed it to an all-seater in 1994, so they actually became an all-seater in 1998. And it's not only just used for Celtic, it's also been used for Scotland International and Cup finals when Hampden Park is unavailable. It's even hosted other events. Before the First World War, it's hosted composite rules shinty hurling, which is very Gaelic, track and field, and track cycling world championships. Open air masses were also held here too. So lots of events at Celtic Park. And the person who designed this stadium, by the way, and the person who ended up designing it, of course, the person who originally got this stadium built as well. The design, of course, is absolutely gorgeous. There are major stands at the park. The North Stand, which is the South Stand, the East Stand, and then, of course, the West Stand, which is now as well. So it's hosted lots of events, of course. But the atmosphere of this place is said to be incredible, though. Absolutely incredible ground. Celtic Park, amazing place. If you're going to Scotland, this is one of the places you want to visit, of course, in Scotland for football. Now, in terms of supporters, of course, Celtic FC have had incredible fan support for years. They're one of Europe's most supported clubs, actually. In 2003, the estimated fan base of Celtic was around 9 million people, including 1 million of those being in the US and Canada. And I certainly think their supporters are even more nowadays. And there are over 160 supporter clubs of Celtic in 20 countries around the world. Of course, one famous thing about their supporters, of course, was an estimated 80,000 of them traveled to Seville for the UEFA Cup final in 2003, which was absolutely insane. They took 80,000 of them. In fact, Celtic also has the highest average home attendance of any Scottish club, and are even rated as the 12th highest attendance of all European clubs in 2011. So, absolutely insane. Their fan support has always been super strong. Of course, they have an absolutely massive fan base. And some groups, of course, very interestingly, Celtic have been in the sectarian part of this as well. Of course, with Rangers' old firm, sectarianism has been a thing in Scotland for a long time, and of course reflects here with Celtic. Now, of course, if you guys remember earlier, Celtic were founded by the Irish Scots that lived here. Well, as a result, of course, Celtic have had a history, a long association with people of the Irish and Scots of Irish descent, who are mainly Roman Catholic. As a result, the clubs have supported the opposing factions in the Troubles in Scotland. And guess what? Some of the people here in Celtic have expressed support for Irish republicanism as well. So it's because of that historical association with the Irish and Irish Scots. So, and they have gotten, and those type of fans have also gotten themselves in a bit of trouble too. Mainly during the Remembrance Day protest. As a result. So, something very important to keep in mind, of course, about Celtic now is Celtic's massive influence on our clubs, and Celtic have been very influential as one of the more influential football clubs in the United Kingdom. In fact, they've had several clubs founded by local fans of Celtic. Most notably and successful was Belfast Celtic, which was founded in 1891. And of course, it was one of the most successful teams in Northern Ireland, actually. In fact, it was one of the most successful teams in Ireland until it withdrew from the Irish League in 1949 due to the political issues, of course. And of course, there are other clubs in Celtic have named after and adopted their kits. The Scottish club Blantyre Celtic FC, which is now defunct, and several lower league clubs as well. Funnily enough, there is a South African club that was founded by Celtic, the South African club Bloemfontein Celtic FC, which was previously one of the most popular clubs in the country. As well. So yes, there is actually a club named after Celtic. So yeah, this club has such an influence. Even other clubs have been founded by Celtic, of course. Now for their club honors, and you can definitely see all the trophies. 55 Scottish League champions, including a streak. Um, including 5 straight from 2021 to 2024-25. Um, though they didn't win last year, of course, that's because Rangers ended that, obviously. Record 42 Scotch Cups. They won 42 of them. The Scottish League Cup 22 times, and yes, they won the Champions League in 1966-67. And finally, for our last line dealing with Celtic, for right now, of course, is their notable players. And Celtic have a ton of them. As Scotland's most famous club, Celtic have had immense amount of legendary players. And where do we begin with this? With legendary talent from Celtic. The first one I can think of course, being one of their greatest players of all time and the greatest ever team. Voted by fans as their greatest ever player, Jimmy Johnstone. And of course, he was known for his elusive dribbling. He played for Celtic for 13 years and was one of their Lisbon Lions that won the Champions League final. He also won 9 straight Scottish championships and scored 129 goals for Celtic in 515 appearances. He once was even part of the top 3 in the Ballon d'Or in 1967. He only came 3rd. But he's one of Scotland's most legendary players as well. Crazy enough, after he played for Celtic, he actually played a few games in the United States, then played at Sheffield United, Dundee, Shelbourne in Ireland, and finally Elgin City in Scotland. But yeah, Johnny Johnstone, legendary player, of course, massive part in their history. Then, of course, their next player is Jimmy McGrory, one of their legendary players, of course. Jimmy McGrory is actually their all-time leading goal scorer, of course. He was their longtime manager and team captain, of course. Jimmy McGrory is actually the all-time leading goal scorer in top-flight British football, with 550 goals at club and international level, and he is Celtic's all-time leading goal scorer, 395 of them. But yes, he has more goal scorers than any other British player, which is actually pretty insane. And of course, he's not only a legendary figure for Celtic as a player, he also was a manager, and he remained for 20 seasons as a manager of Celtic, and he was the manager prior to Jock Stein taking over the club. But he is known as the Human Torpedo, but iconic and legendary player for Celtic, one of their great icons, of course. Then, of course, Celtic's greatest ever foreign player, Henrik Larsson, out of Sweden. Well-known striker, he played originally for Hageborgs BK, Helsingborgs, and Feyenoord. However, he truly cemented his legacy as one of the more successful players in Scottish football history at Celtic, where he scored 174 goals and 221 appearances for the Scottish Giants, and built an iconic legacy at Celtic. Incredible talent, of course, but he was truly one of the all-time great talents at Celtic, and his legacy is still there even today. He's still Celtic's third most goals in Celtic history, which is actually pretty crazy to think about. Then, of course, after him is Billy McNeil. He was their captain of the Lisbon Lions, of course, and club ambassador. He spent more than 60 years with Celtic as a player, manager, and club ambassador. Of course, a brilliant captain of the team. His captaincy was a major piece of why Celtic won the Champions League. And he's won over 31 trophies at Celtic, which is pretty crazy. And he's been invaluable to the club, and that's why he's been one of the greatest players and beloved club icons the club has ever had. Then, of course, we have Kenny Dalglish as well. He's part of their all-time greatest team, but Dalglish is one of Scotland's most talented players ever. I talked about him a little earlier during his time at Liverpool, but it's time we talk a little bit about what he was at Celtic, because he played from there from 1969 to 1977. He was a big piece of him winning 4 Scottish League championships, 4 Scottish clubs. And of course, he was one of the greatest players of all time, as well as one of Scotland's greatest. But truly a club icon for Celtic. So, huge icon, one of Scotland's greatest players. He was truly special. Then some of the other great players, Paul McStay was one of their iconic footballer, of course. Then we had, after him, would be Danny McGrain. Danny McGrain was definitely a well-known, one of Scotland's greatest players throughout the 70s and 80s. And he was definitely a well-known right back and one of the best right backs in football, especially for Scotland during his time at Celtic. And then the other players is Ryan Simpson, and there are plenty more other club icons to pick, but I don't want to pick too many for this video. So that completes Celtic FC. So that completes our journey for Celtic. So we'll get to Glasgow pretty soon, which is 116 nautical miles from our final stop. Gotta take a bit of a breather. For that one, I do apologize if I talk too much. So that's Celtic FC, of course. So let me look at. So let's look at Celtic FC, of course. A little more depth. So this is Celtic FC. As you guys can see, this is Celtic FC's website. So this is Celtic. So you can see all their different sites, of course. So you can get to the news. You press this and you can see all the different stuff. So let's see how much tickets go from Rangers and Celtic. Let's see how much Rangers versus Celtic. Let's see how much their tickets cost. Live football tickets. Oh, Jesus, look at this. For Rangers fans. For one of the main stand rear block MRD with restricted view, cheapest is $566. Yeah. And then for one for unrestricted views, the cheapest one for an unrestricted view is $623. Or in Longside, 706. That is bleeping expensive. That is bleeping expensive. Even for Everton, of course. Everton doesn't have too many. So yeah, that's expensive as heck. Tickets? Yeah, it's the biggest match in Scotland. That's not really that surprising for ticket prices. You can see first time fan guide. So if you're coming here for the first time at Celtic Park, of course you can take a Steam tour course. Of course, Celtic Park is really great for Steam tours. And it's about £18. But yeah, very popular for a lot of people like to visit Celtic Park. It's one of Celtic's it's one of the home grounds. But yeah, this is a club rich in history. You can visit the fan supporters. Of course, they have their online store. They have their rich history, of course, and legends. So you can meet all of their legendary players. So there's good old Billy McNeil, their team captain, of course, Billy McNeil. Um, Billy McNeil, definitely, and you get to learn all about Billy McNeil as a player. So there's Billy McNeil, their team captain. Here's some of their midfielders, of course: Tommy Burns, Bernie Auld, and there's their forwards. Jimmy Johnstone. Here's about his profile, of course. The greatest he will always be known as the greatest ever Celtic ever. Good old Jimmy Johnstone. But yeah, there's Jimmy Johnstone. So yeah, plenty of legends. And they got, like I said, Celtic's got a lot of history. A lot of their greatest icons, of course. And of course, here's their store too. Check out some of their stores. So the Celtic online store. So you can grab yourself some souvenirs, different collections. So they got a Lisbon collection of the famous Lisbon Lions. Next year would probably be the 50th anniversary of this rivalry. Actually, the 60th anniversary of the Lisbon Lions. Of course, there's the scarves. A lot of traditional ones, of course. Gradient ones, bar scarf. The Celtic, then there's the famous tricolor. So there's the famous Irish tricolor, of course. So, pretty cool stuff. And of course, you can't go wrong with grabbing their classic hoop kits. You can't go wrong with their kits, so. So you can't go wrong with their kit. So that basically is going to be covered a bit about Celtic, obviously. So we're about to arrive into the city of Dundee. We've officially made it to we're nearly headed to our first stop. So Dundee, very interesting about this city here in Scotland. It's actually Scotland's fourth largest city, of course. It forms one of the 32 council areas under local government. Population 140,000 people. Dundee is most well known for being a major player in the Industrial Revolution. And this one is the center of global jute industry. Yes. If you don't know what jute is, it's basically long, rough, shiny bast fiber that can spun into coarse, strong threads. And it's known as the city of jute, jam, and journalism. Dundee, as well. So that's been a big part of its economy for years. And jute basically is made from flowering plants in the genus Corchorus. And the main use for jute fibers, it can be used for different cloths, sacking, agricultural cloth, sandbags, cordage, pulp, or it can be processed to be used for shoes, sweaters, imitation silk, curtains, carpets, and rugs. So, pretty important little stuff. This city is definitely well known for all of it as well. And of course, sports are a deal here in the city. And its two clubs are literally just 100 meters apart. So we'll be visiting Dundee FC. So here is Dundee, of course. So we should be seeing Dundee. So we'll get to that soon. So I hope you guys are doing well. Enjoyed this flight along with me. Definitely appreciate your all support. So we'll continue flying in this area, of course. So there it is, the two football grounds in Dundee, literally 100 meters apart. See that? There's the two grounds, literally 100 meters apart. Literally right next to each other. And of course, their airport, let me go ahead and disable the autopilot. And we'll go ahead and fly down. So this is downtown Dundee, and the airport is literally right into the side of it. So I'm going to turn around like this. So there's the airport down in this area right here. Done. What a beautiful trip to Scotland, man. So we'll stop right here. So we'll stop right here for a bit. In Scotland, we'll just chill here for a little bit and get ready to prepare for the next leg. So if you guys are welcome, we're a Southeast Asian server. And So we'll get ready for one last flight. Yes, I'm wearing a Scotland shirt because of this, of course. So, of course, we have one last flight to go here in Glasgow. We should be making our... So we should be getting ready for the last flight. We'll be getting up pretty soon. So, of course, for the community this week, of course, we have Murphy will be back on Lear today. He'll be doing a Warbird Ferry flight. I might join in with that. I'll probably take the good old DC-3 for that. But he'll be doing some flight across Michigan and all that. Should be a really nice one. And then Allison's going to be back tomorrow with her historical flight recreation. She'll be doing it from Reykjavik to Vagar in the R-44 into the Faroe Islands. So should be a lot of fun. So let's get back to the plane, of course, and get ready for the leg. Hey, Balmer, good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while, my dude. I hope you're doing well. We're now heading to the flight to Glasgow, of course. So we're going to climb up and obey. Ah, great. We're in Scotland today for the Old Firm Derby that's going to be happening on Sunday. So we're going to go ahead and so we're going to climb up to around. I don't think we really need super high altitude for the rest of this leg. We can stay around 1,500 feet if we need to. So we're going to continue on to. So we'll continue on this way for another. We got 93 nautical miles left to go, so we don't have that much. Ah, yes, I did get a new PC. It's custom built. My brother built this thing for me. Brand new PC, absolutely incredible. She runs amazingly smooth. Super happy with it. Really, really excited to get this new PC finally. Yeah, this is running really smooth. Super, super happy. We'll stay around 1,100 feet. We're gonna head over to St. Andrews for a bit. So, yes, that was for Christmas. That was my Christmas gift that cost $1,800. But trust me, well worth the money, if you ask me. So we're gonna cover Rangers FC, the home of Rangers, of course, the iconic other football club here in Scotland. Rangers FC was founded back in 1872, 153 years old. This is Scotland's fourth oldest club, and it was founded by 4 teenage boys as they walked through West End Park and discussed the idea of a football club. This legendary Scottish club, of course, has been playing in Ibrox Stadium since 1929, And of course, Scotland Rangers are one of Scotland's most celebrated clubs. 55 league titles, 34-time winners of the Scottish Cup, and won the Scottish League Cup a record 28 times, and have even won a domestic treble on several occasions. They've also won the European Cup's Winners' Cup in 1972 after losing finalists twice, and basically the Cup Winners' Cup. They also lost 2 more European finals in 2008 and 2022. By the number of trophies won, Rangers are one of the most successful clubs in the world. In fact, they're the 3rd most successful club in the world, trailing behind Al Ahly in Egypt and their very bitter rivals, Celtic. So, very successful club, of course. And they've had a very long rivalry with Celtic. Of course. The club and crest for Rangers FC is pretty unique. You see, unlike many other clubs, the Rangers actually have 2 different official crests. You have the scroll crest, which appears in the uniform, while the Lion Rampart crest that you see is actually used by the media, club merchandise, and club documents. And the scroll crest has been used since the club's formation in 1872. And the scroll crest is literally R with interlocking FC in a cross with it. Of course, the logo here that you see here today was one of their oldest crests that was used in the media back in the day. And this crest has been used for a long time. Of course, the colors of Rangers have been royal blue, white, and red. However, for the first 48 years of their existence, they actually played a lighter blue home shirt. That was lighter blue. It was mainly accompanied with white shorts, often with royal blue or red trim, and black socks. However, they changed to royal blue in 1921 and have had a royal blue home shirt ever since. So they've had their traditional colors ever since as well. So Rangers design has always had the black socks as well over the years. So Rangers color hasn't actually changed all that much as a club. And here's St. Andrews to our left, of course. There's the famous golf course at St. Andrews. Now, anyone who knows golf should probably know St. Andrews in the back of their mind. St. Andrews is probably where golf was invented. Was St. Andrews. It's the home of golf. So the most famous golfers at least have played here once. St. Andrews, a legendary golfing venue, of course. I know it's about Rangers, but I did want to bring up a little bit about St. Andrews, of course. So we'll head down this way, of course. Now we'll head west to Edinburgh. So what PC components you got, Viper? Let me put up my Asus thing really quick. My Asus driver hub. Let me see my components. My brother picked them all out. It's gonna take a little bit of settings, of course. Software. A CPU, Asus CPU Z2115. I have a TOF Gaming X870 plus Wi-Fi. Is my PC, of course. That's my motherboard. I also have an AMD Ryzen 9 7900X 12-core processor. NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5070 Ti as my graphics card. And I have nearly a couple gigabytes of memory too. Super nice system. Yeah, that's a huge difference between my low laptop and this. It's a big upgrade. I'm really happy with it too. So very, very happy, Bomber. I really enjoyed it. Oh, nice. You got 8. Oh, nice. 58. That's a bit more advanced, bit of a step up from mine, but and thankfully I also got me a really nice RAM before the whole price spike. But yeah, I'm very, very happy with it. So of course, Rangers FC played one of the most iconic stadiums in Scotland, Ibrox Stadium in Glasgow. 51,700 people have a capacity of 5170. It's Scotland's third largest stadium, and it was designed by the famous stadium architect Archibald Lech, who also designed many other famous grounds in the United Kingdom, including Anfield and Goodison Park in Liverpool. Highbury in London for Arsenal. He also designed, of course, he also did White Hart Lane for Tottenham. And one of his more famous stadiums he's ever built, and one of his most iconic grounds that's still here to this day, Craven Cottage is still here in Fulham. But he did many other iconic parks, stadiums, of course, and he's done so many of them. But Ibrox is an absolute classic, and it's been around since 1899. Its record attendance is at a colossal 118,000 people once attended a game against Celtic in 1939. Of course, it's hosted the Scottish national team when Hampden Park was redeveloped. It's even hosted the Rugby 7 at the 2014 Commonwealth Games. Hey, we have a follow from B1 Rotate. Thank you for the follow, my dude. Yeah, it's actually got more kilobytes per hertz, higher definition. It's definitely better. Thank you for the follow, B1 Rotate. We're in Scotland today for the Old Firm. We're doing our Gameday mat flight, our GA Gameday flight. We're doing here at Ibrox Stadium. We're heading to Glasgow. We're gonna make a quick visit to Edinburgh and make our way to Glasgow. So that's what we're doing here today. We're talking about Rangers, and we're talking about Ibrox Stadium, a very iconic ground in Scottish football, of course. Really neat ground, of course. So they play at the iconic stadium in Ibrox. Definitely one of the classic stadiums in the United Kingdom. Now, something very important with Rangers is their club identity, supporters, and relations with other clubs. Rangers, along with Celtic, are one of the best supported clubs in Europe. The figure attendance for 2017-18 was among the 20 largest home league attendances in Europe. And Rangers Alliance has support. There's more than 600 supported clubs with 330,000 registered members. However, something very important about Rangers and what ties them to the Old Firm is their identity. You see, if Celtic was the Catholic club of the Irish Scots and was Catholic, then Rangers is the polar opposite. They're Protestant, Unionist, and anti-Catholic identity. And of course, one very well-known thing happened, of course, was their 20th century policy, which was brought up by John Uri Primrose, who was the old chairman of Rangers from 1912 to 1923. In order to strengthen that Protestant identity, Rangers had a policy of not signing Catholic players or employing Catholics in other prominent roles. And that lasted between the 1930s and the late 80s, and that was only broken when Rangers signed Mo Johnston. And as a result, Rangers have then since got rid of that policy, and now Catholic players have been now commonplace at Rangers. But yeah, there was a period where they couldn't even get a Catholic, couldn't even hire Catholics due to it, because of that identity. As well. So there is part of that too. And of course, in terms of their fan friendships, they got two very big fan friendships internationally. One is with the Northern Irish club Linfield, dating back to 1920. And Rangers have always had a lot of players from Northern Ireland, and many of them were former Linfield players. So that's how their friendship. Their other fan friendship is with not a club from the United Kingdom, but from Germany, Hamburg. Dating back to the 1970s, when many Scots moved to the German port in search of work. and reinforced by their shared affection for the German midfielder Georg Alberts. And it was formalized in 2021 officially of a club partnership between Rangers and Hamburg. And conversely, Celtic fans, being rivals of Rangers, so happen to have a friendship with Hamburg's rivals, St. Pauli. So yeah, pretty big deal with Rangers, of course. I do stream more. Nowhere, Bummer. See you again soon, my dude. Yeah, we're doing 2 days a week. Who knows? Maybe I could do a Saturday stream in the future, but but yeah, very big important friendships, of course, over the years. So pretty interesting stuff, obviously. So we'll get moving forward, of course, with the Edinburgh. Now, of course, everyone should probably know about the city of Edinburgh, of course. It's the political capital of Scotland, of course. Edinburgh has gotten such really great places to visit. There's so many really great landmarks we did get to visit during our time in Edinburgh. Its population of 506,000. It's the UK's second most populous city in Scotland and the seventh most populous in the UK. And it's home to, it is the seat of the Scottish Government, Parliament, and the highest courts of Scotland, and the official residence of the British monarch in Scotland, the Palace of Holyrood House. It's long been a center of education with the University of Edinburgh. It's financially and especially this is a cultural center, home to the Edinburgh International Festival and the Fringe, the world's largest annual international arts festival. And of course, there are so many really great historic sites. I did get to visit Edinburgh Castle, which, by the way, I actually have it right here. Let me go. This is Edinburgh Castle, a little bit closer for all you guys to see. I actually got it during my visit up here. I had to get me a little bit of a stone thing for my time at Edinburgh Castle, which is super cool. The view from the top of the castle is really, really nice. If you ever get a chance to go up there. I got to visit St. Giles Cathedral, which was really nice, really cool. And of course, the Old Town and New Town are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. In terms of sport, however, there are 4 football clubs that play in Scotland. However, the 2 big ones is Heart of Midlothian and Hibernian, both founded a year apart in 1874 and 1875 respectively. And Hearts and Hibs are the oldest city rivals in Scotland, and their Edinburgh Derby is one of the oldest derby matches in world football. Who knows, I might talk about the Edinburgh Derby for a little bit. And both have won the Scottish title 4 times. However, the thing about Hearts and Hibs is they would have more success if they weren't so overshadowed by the Old Firm, of course. Hearts' last league championship was 1960. Was 59-60 was the last time Hearts had won a title, and Hibs haven't even won a league title since 1952. this is why Hearts winning the title would be so huge this year if Hearts were to finally win it. It would finally break decades of misery in Edinburgh, in the in the in the Garden half of Edinburgh. So yeah, I want to see a new champion. Scotland had been needing one for years. So definitely pretty big. So in terms of other slides, Rangers FC has been featured plenty in pop culture. Rangers has been used in the BBC Scotland comedy Scotch and Wine, where scene where manager and chief scout unknowingly signed a young Catholic footballer, but then tried to avoid his contract to avoid publicly breaking the no Catholic signing policy after finding out. Yes, because at the time in 1979 there was that infamous signing policy. Owing to the notoriety of the club, Rangers also featured in TV documentaries and books about football hooliganism, because obviously the Derby was a big deal for that. And of course, they've also appeared in a number of times in shows, including Fall, the Rangers story at King's Theatre 1994 that starred the Scottish actors Barbara Raftery, Alexander Morton, Jonathan Wilson, Ian Robertson, Ryan Leatham, and Stuart Bowman, and quite a few other stuff too. And of course, there was an incident by a K-pop group in 2023. And when they went to Dallas, Texas, they actually brought the Rangers FC shirts, not the local baseball team, Texas Rangers. And that led to a confusion, of course. And of course, when they traveled through UK the next month, in Wembley, the club welcomed them to Ibrox Stadium, which is pretty cool to see here. So this is welcome to Edinburgh, everyone. We're going to go a little slower here so you guys can take in the city, of course. We'll fly a little bit so you guys can take a breath look at the city. Edinburgh, what a beautiful, beautiful city. I would love to go back, though. Lots of walking, of course. Edinburgh's got so much walking. We walked the entire of the Royal. We walked all the way up to the top of Edinburgh Castle, and then we walked all the way through the Royal Mile. So here is of course the home ground of Hibs. So there's Hibs home ground. So this is Hibernian. So there's Arthur. Now to our left, of course. So there's Arthur's seat. Yeah, sometimes the audio doesn't really work out the way you want it to. So there is Edinburgh. So let's fly around Edinburgh for a bit. So, of course, the Palace of Holyrood House is down over here. So we visit through the Royal Mile. We got to visit through over this area. Absolutely gorgeous city. Edinburgh is absolutely incredible. There's Calton Hill, with many city views, of course. It's Calton Hill. And there's the Scottish government there over here. We went down to see the Holyrood Palace, which is really cool to see. So there's the Holyrood House. really neat place. So there's the Palace of Scotland. That's absolutely gorgeous. So we'll fly into Edinburgh for a bit, but really cool. Yeah, I wanted to show you guys Edinburgh for a bit because it is definitely one of my favorite cities. It was definitely one of the highlights of my trip. So there, of course, to our right is the famous Edinburgh Castle. So there's Edinburgh Castle, which I visited. Really cool place. And St. Giles Cathedral. Edinburgh Castle is really cool. So then we'll arrive into the home of Hearts, who are the league leaders this time around. So we'll visit them. And we'll visit Murrayfield, which is the home of Scottish rugby. So we'll have a chance to pay a visit to both. So, okay, we'll now head over to our next place, Falkirk. So we'll head over this way. So let's talk about the rest of Celtic FC. It's about Rangers. Let's talk about the rest of Rangers, of course. If you look at their league honors, it's not surprising they have a ton of them. They've won the Scottish League title 55 times, tied with Celtic. Their most recent being 2020, 2021. They've won the second tier, third tier, and fourth tier championships in all back-to-back years. Then, of course, they won the Scottish Cup 34 times, most recently in 2021, 2022. The League Cup 28 times. And finally, of course, they also won a Cup Winners' Cup in 1971-72. Of course, when talking about Rangers FC and some of their well-known players, of course, they have many icons. But if you have to ask Rangers and their fans who their greatest player ever was, and their most notable greatest ever team, one of their greatest ever players is Ali McCoist, who originally started his career at St. Johnstone, then played a handful of matches at Sunderland. However, he truly became an icon of Scottish football when he joined Rangers in 1983. And he went on to become a dominant force in Rangers, winning the 9 straight league championships between 1988 and 1997. And he had 418 goals and 251 goals and 418 appearances at Rangers. He was also a member of the Scottish Football Hall of Fame, and he's the 5th highest all-time goal scorer in the top tier of Scottish football. And then after his football career, he even became an assistant manager, and he even became the manager of Rangers for a few seasons. So he had a massive career and legacy at Rangers, of course. Then, of course, after him, of course, is John Greig, who is actually voted by many to be the greatest player Rangers has ever had by the club supporters. He was actually born in Edinburgh, and then he became a member of Rangers from 1961 to 1978 in his senior career. 87 goals and nearly 500 appearances. And he was well known for his being determined, forceful, and has great leadership qualities. He's actually made 755 official appearances for Rangers, of course. and he has had a massive legacy for the club. And he was also a manager of their club too, from 1778 to 1983. But massive legacy for Rangers, and he was one of their all-time greatest players. But his legacy is absolutely huge. Then after Grieg, of course, is Andy Gorham. Andy Gorham is also one of their great players, of course. Well-known goalkeeper, but he truly became a legend when he played during Rangers, where he became known as the goalie by Rangers fans, and he was voted their greatest ever goalkeeper. And he had 184 appearances at Rangers, of course, and he became a major piece during his time at Rangers, including being part of several important moments throughout his career, of course. So after he played Rangers, he bounced around a lot after Rangers, all throughout the United Kingdom. So, pretty much. Then after Gorham, of course, is Jim Baxter. He's actually voted to be the third greatest player in club history and one of Scotland's greatest talents ever. Originally started at FIFA, but he joined Rangers in the 1960s. He had two different stints at Rangers. Hey, gold member for the fall. Thank you so much, gold member. I hope you're doing well. We're heading our way into Glasgow. We're gonna have a brief trip into Falkirk. Then we're gonna make our way to Stirling, and then finally from there we're going to make our way over to Glasgow. So we're just talking about some of the greatest ever players. Hello from California. Hello. I'm from Indiana, by the way, from the Hoosier State. I hope you're doing well. James Baxter is one of Scotland's greatest players. He became a dominant force at Rangers, of course, and helped them win multiple titles in the 1960s, of course. And won multiple championship as well. Then, of course, some of their other great talents, Brian Landrup. He's actually their greatest foreign player ever. Brian Landrup was a major club icon of Rangers from 1994 to 1998, and that was the peak of his career during his time at Rangers. And then some of their other talents included Paul Gascoigne, one of the best players of his generation. Then you have Sidney Jardine, another iconic player for Rangers, and Davy Cooper, who was a major piece during the 80s, and of course, many more other great talents have actually played at the club. So they're, like I said, Rangers, so many iconic players for the club. Congrats on the title. Thank you, gold member. Yeah, I actually live around Louisville, of course, but yeah, IU football winning the title was such a big deal for the state. A lot of people don't know this, but prior to 2 years ago, when Kurt Sangetti took the job, Indiana football was an afterthought, and I'm actually being kind when I said afterthought. It was an afterthought. Indiana football was rubbish. It had one of the worst winning percentages in college football history. Most all-time losses, but 715 losses. Fifth worst all-time win percentages in FBS among 1,000 games played, and all that. But yeah, Kurt Sangetti completely turned around Indiana football into a national power, which is something I couldn't even fathom it even be real. It isn't real. Indiana football's insane. Yeah, exactly. Indiana football deserved the success they've been. It needed to happen. Indiana football. It's absolutely insane. But yeah, of course. So here's the crazy thing, though. I actually live near Louisville, believe it or not. So for me, Indiana winning a title before Louisville still is baffling, considering Louisville has gone close to the national championship once. In 2006, they nearly got to a national title in 06 if it wasn't for Rutgers ending that season. Oh, man. So this is Falkirk, the little city of Falkirk, coming up with us. Beautiful city of Falkirk, home to another well-known club. This little town here in Scotland, 32,000. Falkirk is known for its heavy industry with iron and steel industry in Scotland. It also manufactured carronades, which are small little canyons, pillar boxes, and foam boxes, is what used to be manufactured here in Falkirk. So, Falkirk is coming up. Beautiful town. Scotland's absolutely gorgeous in this sim. It's a really, really neat place. We got to fly earlier out of freshly built bridge, Scotland. The highlands in this region are absolutely breathtaking. I want to do more flying in this region. So here's Falkirk coming up. There's a little ground for little Falkirk FC, one of the town's main football club, founded back in 1876. And funnily enough, they almost won the Scottish League twice in 1907, in 1908, in 1909, 1910. Though they've won the record second division title 8 times, so they've been much more successful in the second division compared to the first division. So we're going to head up to Stirling now. Now, Stirling is going to be our next destination, of course. Stirling's our next waypoint. Stirling's actually played this city here in Scotland's about 26 miles northeast of Glasgow and 37 miles northwest of Edinburgh. But of course, this city is most well known for its famous royal citadel, Stirling Castle. One of the largest and most historically important castles in all of Scotland. On top of the Trussett Craig, and it's been a major strategic position, which was guarded until the 1890s of the River Forth. And before the Union of England, it was actually one of the most used of all the Scottish royal residences. Several kings and queens of Scotland have even been crowned at the castle. Nowadays, this is a very popular tourist attraction. People love to visit Stirling Castle. I wish we could have visited Stirling Castle. It would be really cool to see, of course. So we're heading to Stirling Castle. Really cool stuff. This is going to be really exciting to fly into Stirling Castle. So once we do that, we'll head up northeast. We'll head southeast to Glasgow. So Scottish Highlands, of course, in the distance. Beautiful Scottish Highlands. So we'll get to here. Hey, good to see you, Kev. What are you doing, my dude? Sterling. Oh, nice. You live around this area, Kev. Here's a shout out for Kev's channel. Good to see you, my dude. I wish I would have visited Stirling during my time in Scotland. I wish I could have gotten a chance to visit Stirling Castle. Unfortunately, that never came to be. Plus, we did already have one planned in Scotland. We did visit, believe it or not. We visited. Let me try to remember which castle we visited. Oh, Colzian Castle. That's the one we visited in Scotland. The Colzian Castle. That's the one. Which was really cool though. The Colzian Castle was neat. The former home of Marquis of Elisa of Clan Kennedy. Colzian was really cool though. But I would love to visit Stirling. So many great castles in Scotland. And there it is, Stirling Castle. That's why I wanted to fly and take a little bit of a detour. Instead of going straight to Glasgow, I wanted to take a little detour to Stirling to check out the beautiful castle up there. Stirling is absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, I absolutely love my time in Scotland. It was an amazing place to visit. So many really good places to visit. Scotland was absolutely gorgeous when we visited, and we got really lucky with the weather. It was pretty much sunshine throughout all of it. It might have been a little cold, but it wasn't bad. So here it is, Stirling Castle on the Seine. Yes. Oh, where are we flying? We are flying general aviation today. I'm flying the Piper Warrior 2 is our plane. So yeah, here it is. Exclamation point plane will give us the Just Flight Piper Warrior from Just Flight. Really nice plane, really great for general aviation. So we'll go a little slower. So we're gonna go like right here, just a little slower. So here it is, guys. Stirling Castle in the distance. Oh yeah, yeah. This channel is mainly general aviation, so you're in luck. So here it is, guys. Stirling Castle. And by the way, Gold member, I do have my Discord. If you guys are interested, I have my Discord here. So this is Stirling Castle. Absolutely gorgeous place. It was strategically very important for Scotland's defenses back in the old days, when Scotland used to be. That's how you stood out. Absolutely appreciate it. I've been doing this since 2021 actually, so I'm pretty new to this. I've done general aviation since that time as well. So we're gonna go ahead and climb straight up. So that is what we're doing here today. So we're going ahead and talk. And I do tons of notes. I have notes for everything, including all the old firm stuff. So here's like some of my notes. I've been compiling all this, and I present you guys the notes for all of it and give you a bit of a tour and learn about the places we fly. So, and speaking of slideshow, I'm going to go ahead and check out Rangers FC, their website. So here's Rangers FC, Rangers Football Club. So here's Rangers. So Rangers Football Club. Check off. So you can see the different stuff. There. So Rangers Football Club has different stuff. You can learn about the team. You can learn, for example, you got Ibrox Stadium. Ibrox right here. And you got all your different sort of stuff. You could do Rangers Museum and Stadium tour. So you could tour the stadium and all that. So you could do Ibrox Rangers Museum and Ibrox Stadium tour. So you can do a stadium tour of Ibrox Stadium. So you can visit, you can start at Edmondson House, and then you go to your All Access Pass, and you go through all of this sort of stuff, as well with Rangers and stuff. The rich history of the club, so you can take a bit of a stadium tour, or you can take one of the museum too, and learn all about Rangers. They also have you can do talk about the teams, the men's team. So you can learn about all the different team, of course. You can become a member of the club, and you become their club members, of course. So you can learn all about that. The Edmondson House. And of course, the help of information gives you a bit about their information stuff. But yeah, lots of really cool stuff about Rangers, of course. And obviously, here's the team store. Of course, you have their famous royal blue kits. Their famous royal blue kits that everyone should know about Rangers. Their famous royal blues. And of course, they got a lot of accessories. And of course, their scarves too. They got some very famous ones too. Looks really cool. And of course, there's their famous scarf. Yeah, lots of stuff here. So, really cool stuff. And there's the Edmondson House, which is a new facility for the museum. But yeah, they got a really cool looking museum. But yeah, that is about Rangers FC. So we're about to get to the stadium stuff pretty soon. But yeah, the Scotch Highlands are absolutely gorgeous in Sim. It was already good looking in 2020, but man, 2024 really upgraded the Scottish scenery up here. So we're about to enter Glasgow very soon. So a little bit of information about Glasgow, of course. And to wrap things up, of course, Glasgow is actually the largest city in Scotland. Its population is around 632,000 in 2020, but more than 1 million people live in the greater area, and the region is home to 1.8 million people. It's also the UK's third most populous city, trailing only behind London and Manchester as the big three. Actually, I believe it is London's number one. London is the most populous city. Oh, Birmingham is actually the second most populous city in Britain. So Glasgow is number 3. This is the leading city in Scotland for university education, finance, industry, commerce, culture, and fashion. It's considered widely to be the second city of the British Empire for much of the Victorian and Edwardian eras. Glasgow was especially big for its cathedral, of course. It's got its very nice Glasgow Cathedral, which is absolutely gorgeous. Glasgow has also enjoyed a lot of cultural reputations: the Hunterian Museum, the Borough Collection, the Royal Scottish National Orchestra, the National Royal Conservatory of Scotland, and more. And of course, it's rich for all sorts of stuff, including sports, because Glasgow is actually where the first international football match was ever held, in Glasgow. So yes, football as we know it has a home in Glasgow. Like, international football has had a home here in Glasgow. Hmm. So, thank you for coming on in, guys. Appreciate you, Gold Member, for joining my Discord. Really do appreciate it. So, Glasgow, really cool city. Never got the chance to visit, but maybe next time if I get a chance to visit Glasgow, I want to visit downtown. So first we'll be visiting Celtic Park first. Celtic Park will be our first stop in this trip. Is Celtic Park, the home of Celtic FC, will be our first waypoint for pictures. Yeah, the vines are perfect. Oh, great. Thank you. Appreciate it. So we'll be doing here too. And we've done plenty of series in the past, by the way. I also have a VOD channel as well. But we've done plenty of adventures throughout the years, of course. Most recently, the 50 States and 50 Streams, which has been our previous series. That was a lot of fun. That was really enjoyable. The 50 U.S. states, a lot of fun. Get to visit all the U.S. states, which is a lot of fun. That was a ton of fun, of course. We're also doing a National Park Series Sundays, so if you like nature and scenery, our National Park stuff's coming up too. So this is Glasgow, everyone. So Glasgow. Looking forward to that, of course, as always. So here we go. I know the sun's hitting it. So looking forward to all this. So yeah, looking forward to this weekend, of course. Scotch football this year. The Scotch Premiership should be pretty interesting, of course. So other big games, of course, besides Rangers Celtic, Hearts Aberdeen's big because depending on how Hearts do against Aberdeen, they could potentially fall in the Rangers could be 1 point closer to Hearts, or Celtic would be 3 points closer to Hearts, or if they two draw, it would be 3 points away for Rangers or 5 points for Celtic. So for Hearts, the best outcome for Hearts would actually just be for Rangers and Celtic to just draw. That would probably be the best case scenario for it. So here it is, guys. We officially reached first stadium here in Glasgow, our first of 3 in the city. This is Celtic Park, the iconic home of the Green White at Glasgow. So the next one, of course, is Hampton. This is Barclays Hampton, actually. This is the home of Scotch football internationally. For Scotch football, they play here at Hampton. So this is where internationally Scotch football plays here. And this is where Scottish football was invented internationally, here as well. So here it is. We're now going to cross from Hampton. We're going to have some opportunities here. So we're going to fly into downtown Glasgow. 3, 4, 6, 9. So this is downtown. This is downtown Glasgow. Six. So beautiful Glasgow, of course. Really cool stuff. Downtown Glasgow, and then finally finally for the last place, of course, Ibrox Stadium, and that is to our left. So there's Ibrox Stadium, home of Rangers. So there's Ibrox. So we're going to turn this way and we'll wrap up the stream. We'll head to Glasgow Airport. So guys, thank you. Hey, Dougal, good to see you, my dude. Welcome on in, Dougal. It's been a while since you've been in my chat. We're doing great. We're about to head to the end of the stream. We're about to get to Glasgow Airport. We were covering the infamous Old Firm that's going to be coming up between Rangers and Celtic on Sunday. That's going to be a really, really fun game. But I'm doing great, my dude. Really doing great. We started back all the way back in the Highlands at Feshy Bridge Airfield. We went through Cairngorms National Park to Aberdeen, then fly down the coast to Dundee, St. Andrews, Edinburgh, Falkirk, Stirling, and now to Glasgow. I'm sorry to hear about my dude. Definitely take it easy, Dougal. But you'll always be welcome here anytime you want to. You're more than welcome. I just wanted to. You're more than welcome to come anytime you want to. I'm not the type of person that forces people to come. I completely understand people have lives and stuff to do, and that's why I understand. But thank you for coming, though. I really do appreciate the support and all that. So we're about to arrive in the beautiful Glasgow airport. So I really enjoyed this derby. I hope you guys learned something about the Old Firm, this iconic rivalry of Scottish football, the big two of Glasgow. Like I said, it wasn't easy, but this was obviously the choice. It's one of the world's most bitter sporting rivalries anywhere, and I'm not kidding. The other games we could have picked, Dortmund and Bayern Munich would have been a big one to pick. That one would have been huge, but Rangers and Celtic are in a different tier of how competitive it is. And I'm not kidding. It's a different tier. So we're going to go ahead and prepare for the land. Oh, yes, Murph flying those big bombers, Dougal. Oh, I'll be looking forward to that one. I might even join on in. I might even join Murph and the crew. I'll probably take the good old DC-3 with me. I haven't flown that in a while, so it should be a fun one, of course. But I'll be looking forward to that. Of course, Murphy's going to be back on. If you guys don't know Two-Toe Murphy, absolute legend in the flight sim community. He is who inspired me to be a streamer. Is Murph with his Joe Aviation. Massive fan of Murphy in the gang. He Allison are the big two people, but I looked up to for streaming because they're professional, kind-hearted, and have amazing communities with wonderful people. I couldn't ask for a better community than Murph's. So here we go, guys. Welcome to Glasgow. Hoping I make a return back. So we'll park right over here. Guys, thank you all so much for coming into the game day flights. We'll park here and we'll turn off the engine and we'll get ready to set up the raid. So guys, thank you all so much for coming here. I hope you guys have a great start of your weekend. I know we've had some really great streams. So let me look who's going to be on. I think we're going to raid MSFS Official is what we're going to raid. We're going to raid MSFS Official. So we'll raid their channel. So we'll be back on Sunday for the Carlsbad Caverns National Park. And our next game day flight on next Friday we'll be covering in Italy for the Derby della Madonna. The clash between AC and Inter Milan. So should be an epic one for next week. So take care, everyone, and have a fantastic rest of your day. Goodbye, everyone, and have a great start to your weekend. Take care, everyone.